Then on Sports Central, we go over our 2022 college football predictions for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, team that went 3-9 overall in the 2021 season. Definitely a disappointing season for Nebraska. This was a team that took all 9 losses within 10 points last season, 8 of those 9 being within 1 score. So Nebraska, they played it close to a lot of really good football teams last season, but in the end, they could hardly pull out any wins. But that said, how will this team be in 2022? Will this team finally get over the hump in the 2022 season and make it back to a bowl game or even be a potential dark horse contender in the Big Ten West? That's what we'll be going over here today. We'll be analyzing this team and predicting their schedule game by game in this video, starting out with your team trends. Nebraska 3-9 last season. They were 3-3 in their first 6 games, 0-6 in their last 6. This team played, once again, a lot of close games last season. Went to Oklahoma, took a loss there by 7. And of course, the Sooners, they were a good team last season. You lost to Michigan State on the road, 20-23. Michigan State, of course, really good team last season, and Nebraska controlled that game. I mean, all the way up until the very end when they ended up losing there off of a field goal in overtime. But, I mean, that was just the theme for the season for this team. They played a lot of close games. They played a lot of really good opponents. I mean, this was a brutal schedule that Nebraska played last season. I mean, you had to play Michigan, Ohio State. I mean, in the Big Ten West, of course, Purdue, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota. I mean, you need to play Michigan State. I mean, your crossover games into the East Division were Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State, the top 3 teams in that division last season, plus you had to play Oklahoma in Norman. So it was a brutal schedule for this team. And, I mean, if you look at some of the other losses here, I mean, you lost to Michigan by 3, 29-32. Turns out the Wolverines won the Big Ten and made it to the college football playoff in Nebraska. It looked like they were going to beat the Wolverines there until once again the very end. The next week, lost to Minnesota by 7. Then you lost to Purdue by 5. Lost to Ohio State by 9. I mean, they kept Ohio State to 26 points last season. Ohio State was offensively just a powerhouse last season, and they only scored 26 points against Nebraska in that matchup in early November. Lost to Wisconsin on the road by 7. Lost to Iowa by 7 to finish out the season, and what was definitely fitting to finish out the season, losing to Iowa there. When you control the Hawkeyes for a long time, but in the end, Iowa got the win at the very end. So Nebraska 3-9 last season, definitely a tough season. But looking forward to 2022 now, how does the roster look? This team does have a few significant changes. Adrian Martinez, of course, is transferring out. He is off to K-State, so he will not be around for next season, which I feel like that's best for Nebraska. That's best for both parties there. I mean, Adrian Martinez, he's a talented quarterback. I think he genuinely does have talent, but I mean, he was not a very clutch quarterback. In those crucial situations, he would either turn over the ball or you would do something to screw up the game. So, I mean, Adrian Martinez, he's talented, but I think it's best that he moves on and Nebraska moves on at the quarterback position. So coming up next, it's Casey Thompson, the Texas transfer quarterback, who is, I'm almost positive, going to start if he can stay healthy. And Casey Thompson definitely he's a young quarterback, but he does have some experience with Texas. He was the primary starting quarterback for the Longhorns last season. So definitely interesting to see him and how he's going to fit in with this offense next season. Backfield looks really good. Lots of depth in the backfield going into next season. You got Ramir Johnson coming back, who put up over 400 yards of offense and 6 touchdowns. Well, actually, of total offense, he'd have nearly 700 yards. He had over 400 of rushing last season. And, of course, Jaquez Yant is also coming back, the second in rushing yards for this team last season with nearly 300 in a touchdown. I mean, Ramir Johnson and Jaquez Yant, both are key players to keep an eye on. And, I mean, it's not just them. I mean, the backfield's got some tremendous depth. The receiving core, Samori Toure is gone. He was the top receiver for this team last season, putting up over 900 yards of offense and 6 touchdowns. That'll be a tough loss there. But you also lose Austin Allen, who turned out to have a great season in 2021, putting up over 600 yards and 2 touchdowns. Omar Manning's coming back, the second wideout for this team last season. He put up just over 500 yards of offense last season, so definitely he's a player to keep an eye on. And, of course, you got Xavier Betts, the third wideout for this team. His future is uncertain. It sounds like he's not with the team right now. I don't know if he's going to come back for the 2022 season. I mean, he's still eligible, so we'll see how that ages, or whether he transfers to a different school or something. I don't know what's going to happen there, but Xavier Betts, definitely, Nebraska could use him. I mean, last season, he put up over 300 yards of offense, and I mean, he was a key player for this offense. So, and he's still young, and he's finally starting to get some experience. So we'll see how that ages there. But the Cornhuskers lose one on the offensive line, so the offensive line should be better next season. That's, of course, Juergens, who left. 3 defensive linemen, 3 in the secondary, also gone, so you lose 6 starters defensively. This defense was actually, they were good last season. I mean, they played, in general, pretty well. I mean, this defense could have led this team to a Big Ten title game, but offensively, they just couldn't get it done, and, I mean, in the end, the offense is what really cost this team a lot of losses last season. I mean, they were 3-9, and we're talking about how this team had the talent to be in the Big Ten title game last season. That's just how crazy and how wild of a season it was. It is widely thought of that this team, the 2021 Cornhuskers potentially were the best 3-9 team of all time. And there's reason to see why, based on how close this team played a lot of really good football teams, and in the end, it just couldn't pull off many wins. But once again, good team with a bad record in 2021. But brings up the question: will the Huskers finally break through in 2022? Will this team be a dark horse in the Big Ten, potentially get to a bowl game or a decent one? I feel like the schedule is much easier in 2022. Let's just say that. It was brutal in 2021 to say the least, but I think it looks promising going into 2022 here. I think this team does. I do see some upside and potential here with the Huskers going into 2022. But now looking at the transfer portal and recruiting going to next season, you got Casey Thompson, of course, coming in from Texas once again. Adrian Martinez off to K-State. You also got Chuba Purdy coming in, a quarterback from Florida State, who's definitely got some potential for the future. He's still a very young quarterback. Omar Brown, defensive back, coming in from Northern Iowa. Will Honus, linebacker, off to K-State. You got Marvin Scott taking off to FAU, Florida Atlantic. You got Trey Palmer coming in from LSU. He's a receiver. And, of course, you got Mickey Joseph as well, who is a very good receiving coach. He's coached some outstanding receivers. So, that's definitely a good sign for the receiving corps going into next season, which is already very talented for the Huskers. And then Hunter Anthony, offensive tackle, coming in from Oklahoma State, adding to the depth of the offensive line, which definitely needs it. The offensive line was a big issue for Nebraska last season. You also got Phildarius Payne. He's taken off to Virginia Tech, edge rusher. And then you got Tommy Hill coming in, defensive back from ASU. O'Shawn Mathis, edge rusher, coming in from TCU. Stephon Wynn, defensive lineman, coming in from Alabama. Latrell Neville, receivers, off to North Texas. You got Marcus Washington, though, coming in from Texas. Then Kane Williams, safety, is coming in from Alabama. And Casey Rogers, defensive lineman, off to Oregon. So the transfer portal has been great, I would say, for Nebraska this past offseason. I think they're ranked in the top 7, if I'm right, for the transfers on a 24/7 Sports. So recruiting-wise, 41st in the nation, 10th in the Big Ten. So lower than usual for Nebraska in recruiting, but once again, the transfer portal has been a big focus, I think, for the Huskers this past offseason. They got 2 4-stars coming in and 16 3-stars. But that said, let's look at their schedule now going into next season. You start off the season against Northwestern in Week 0, which is a very crucial game for the Cornhuskers, to say the least. We saw Nebraska play Illinois in Week 0 last season, lost that game by 8, which was a huge disappointment. Turns out Nebraska went 3-9, and it was not a good season for Nebraska. So, I think that Week 0 matchup against Northwestern is extremely crucial, and that's going to set the tone for the season. And you just need that win there. In Ireland, if you want to set the momentum and get off to a good start, which is, I think, crucial for this team going to next season, because you want to put the 2021 season behind you. You don't want that the 2021 season and all the close losses to linger in the 2022 as well. So that's a very crucial game. And then you got North Dakota as their first actual home game on September 3rd in Week 1. Then Georgia Southern after that. You got Oklahoma coming to town on the 17th, and then your bye week, and then Indiana also home to start off your October. So you go to Ireland in Week 0, but then you got 5 weeks straight at home there, including your bye. And then you go on the road to Rutgers and on the road to Purdue there after that. So that Purdue game is going to certainly be a challenging one. I think Purdue is going to be a good team next season. Illinois and Minnesota both at home, then off to Michigan, and then Wisconsin at home, and then Iowa on the road to finish out the season. So let's look at your September and your first 4 games here. Northwestern, I'm going to say Nebraska wins that game. That is going to be a crucial one. I think it's going to be closer, a closer one for sure, but I think Nebraska pulls it out in the end. Northwestern, I could see 4 to 7 wins out of them next season. I just don't think Northwestern's going to be very good. They're still kind of in a rebuilding phase, and they just won the Big Ten West a couple of years ago, but they're so up and down, based on the season. So who knows, they could be good, but I do think Nebraska wins that game. So that's a huge one there to start off the season. North Dakota, Georgia Southern, both easy wins. You take care of both those teams by at least 14 points. Oklahoma coming to town. That's basically coin toss for me, but that game is, I feel like the game time kind of decided that game for me because it turns out that it's going to be a 11 o'clock kickoff. So Oklahoma's coming to town for a morning game, and that's obviously a huge one there. I feel like Nebraska could definitely beat Oklahoma, but if it was a night game and if it was a hostile environment like that, Nebraska could very well win that game. But I think Oklahoma does win that game in a close one. In the end, it's certainly a close matchup and a great matchup in Nebraska. They're going to put up a fight there for sure. And OU, of course, and their situation, they got some, their roster is significantly different going into 2022, and the coaching is as well. So you're 3-1 heading to October. Indiana, that's going to be a closer win, but I definitely think Nebraska. I'm going to favor the Huskers there for sure. And then you got Rutgers on the road. Rutgers, of course, that's on a Friday night. That's going to be, I think, a closer game than some may expect. I think Rutgers hangs around there for a while, but Nebraska does pull out the win in the end. So you're 5-1 heading into the Purdue game. That is, I'd say, a very good situation if you got 5 wins heading into your Purdue matchup. And the Boilermakers, good team next season. I could see them in the 7-9 win range, probably the 8-9 win range, honestly. They're going to be good once again next season. So I'm going to favor Purdue there on the road, but certainly a good matchup, a very close matchup. And then you got your bye week and then Illinois at home. So you got 2 byes next season, of course, playing in week 0. And then you got Illinois coming to town. I'm going to say you beat Illinois by a couple of touchdowns there. So 6-2 heading into November, which November is your toughest month on your schedule. Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. All 4 teams should be going to bowl games next season at least. And then you got Minnesota. I'll say close win there. You got them coming to town. I think it's certainly a competitive matchup, but you beat Minnesota. You go on the road to Michigan. I feel like the Wolverines next season, once again, I could see them as a national contender yet again. And they're going to be right up there with Ohio State to win that East Division. It's going to be kind of similar, I think. Michigan, they look really good, I'd say. Their returning production is excellent. Recruiting's great. So Michigan, they're going to be a tough team, and you lose there. And you lose to Wisconsin, but you beat Iowa. So this is kind of a situation where I think you either lose to Wisconsin or Iowa. You're not going to lose to both. You're going to beat one of them, but you're going to lose to one of them. So I do think you beat either Wisconsin or Iowa this season. I do have you losing to Wisconsin at home and then beating Iowa on the road, but once again, could go either way. So I've got you at 8-4 next season, which is pretty optimistic. I feel like the way the schedule sets up, it looks favorable for Nebraska. And then let me just say, that Northwestern game, once again, is extremely crucial. You lose that Northwestern game, I think this team is a 4 or 5 win team next season. I'm serious when I say that. I feel like that week 0 matchup is extremely crucial there. That sets the tone for the season. And if you look at how 2021 fared out with the 3-9 season and all the close losses, you don't want that going into the 2022 season as well. So 8-4 is the record for this team if you beat Northwestern in week 0. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Nebraska, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.